Today we're going to talk about the 3 things that I do to start off every new year. Happy New Year, everyone. It is a brand new year. It's a new chapter. I'm really looking forward to a fresh start this year. And after spending a few weeks giving myself a little bit of a break, a little bit of time with my family and all these kinds of things, I am ready to start the new year again. Ready to start new projects, ready to start new videos, all sorts of things like that. But before we can get into any of that, I reset everything to do with my physical space, my mental space, and my digital space before I can get going. Hey guys, thank you so much for being here. I'm Felicia from SweetGeorgia and the School of SweetGeorgia. And as a knitter, a weaver, spinner, and a dyer, I come here every Friday to talk about my experience of being a multi-craft jewel maker. I talk about the importance of making time to make things, and also about how I'm finding ways of balancing a very full family life with a very full business life, and what I would like to be a very full creative life. Now, during the holidays, I will admit that I did almost no making. Our holidays are really busy and full, and we're really blessed to have this opportunity to get together with friends and with family, or we're pretty much skiing. Pretty much something is going on every day of the holidays. So there's not a lot of downtime. I managed to weave about 2 inches of weaving on my fanny loom. It was classic crackle and it was great. I spent, I don't know how much time, but I just wove about this much and figured out how classic crackle works. And I managed to crank about 6 individual socks on the circular sock knitting machine and a couple of knitted scarves on the flatbed knitting machine. So it's not 0, but it's also not a lot. But in any case, what I do try to do over the holidays is to find a chunk of time to clean and de-stash my craft space. So that for me is this attic. And for me, that time was New Year's Day when we were not going anywhere. So I kind of went into this manic cleaning mode on that day and took about 5 or 6 hours to clean out this attic here. So these are the 3 things that I do over the course of the holidays, over the course of that creative hibernation time in order to reset for the year. The first thing is I clean out my physical space. I de-stash and I clean. So in terms of this attic, what that means is that I go through all of my yarn stash and I flip out every single bin and I look at every single skein of yarn. I decide, picking up each skein of yarn and deciding if it sparks joy, I think about whether or not I want to keep it or if I'm going to donate it, what I might use it for, lots of different questions for each of these skeins of yarn. The ones that I decide to keep that I might use for future projects or might use for projects for the kids, something like that, I resorted all of that yarn into containers where they're batched by similar yarn weight. So that means all of the lace weight goes into one bin, all of the sock weight is in one bin. I have a bin for DK weight yarn, one for worsted weight yarn. There's one specifically for BFL and silk yarn, both BFL and silk fine, and the BFL and silk DK yarn that we make at SweetGeorgia, because I just like that yarn. I use it for everything, and so I have a significant amount of BFL and silk yarn. So I also went through and looked at all of my spinning fiber and really was critical about what to keep and what to get rid of. Some of the spinning fiber I have been holding on to for almost 13 years now. Back when I first started doing a once a month fiber club, we were designing new colorways for fiber every single month. And so I'd save 1 braid of every single month. And it just gets to the point where it's too much. I will not ever have enough time to spin all of that into yarn. And so I think that in a lot of cases, that is better used by somebody who's learning how to spin right now, somebody who needs some fiber to work with. And so what I did was I took a whole bunch of the fibers that I de-stashed, as well as all of the yarns that I decided that I'm not going to be using, all of the yarns that I de-stashed, and I took it all to the studio to share with the members there. So anyone who's sort of learning how to spin at the studio, or anybody who is learning how to knit, there's a couple of people on our team who are learning how to knit or crochet or spin for the very first time. And so this is a really, really great way of sharing what you already have and letting people use those materials. So I'm really, really happy to be able to do that. The other thing I do is just I go through all of the shelves, I collect every single crochet hook, every single knitting needle, and just sort filter, collect everything into the places where they're supposed to be. I also have a number of these IKEA rolling carts, which have become my supply caddies. And so there's one for the knitting machines, there's one for weaving looms, there's one for my CSM supplies, and I just make sure that all of those things are cleaned out and sorted, because for some reason yarn ends up being in every single caddy in every single corner of the house. And so I just kind of like collect everything, sort everything, and clear out as much as possible. Clear out, you know, what I'm not going to be using this year. I did try. My husband suggested that I inventory everything. And so I did try. I started a little spreadsheet and I was going to inventory all of my fiber, but I finished the fiber and then I just couldn't inventory the yarn. It's just too much to do at one sitting. So after cleaning out and refreshing my physical space, the second thing that I do is I clear out my mental space. So I'm looking at reflecting, reviewing, and renewing my intentions for the year. So a lot of that requires sort of analog methods of sitting down with a journal and migrating my bullet journals, taking a bit of an afternoon to reflect on the past year. I write out all of my previous life thoughts and goals and then review them, think about whether or not that's what I want to do for the coming year, and then I set out new intentions. This was my old bullet journal. This one actually I started in September 2020 and I just finished it December 2022. This is my pandemic journal. And I've migrated over to my new journal, which is light, refreshing, brand new, fresh start. And so in my new bullet journal, I am going back to the super minimal way of doing bullet journaling where I'm just jotting down notes of every day. Now, I am doing this sort of in combination with another method where I'm keeping track of a lot of the things that I'm working on and doing in a digital way. And so I'm going to share more about that in a future video. But I do use the analog journals to sort of write out and brain dump all of the things that I'm thinking about, all of the things that are going on. I need a spot to just write it all out. And once I write it all out, that helps get it out of my brain, and then I can consider what I'm going to do with it after. So with bullet journaling, I have gone back to the original old school, super simple and minimal way of doing bullet journaling, which is described by Ryder Carroll in his original book and everything. And no fancy drawings, no fancy pictures. I've talked about this before, but I do look ahead 10 years and I imagine what life is going to be like 10 years from now. And then I work backwards and then I look at what could I do in the next 5 years, and then what can I do in this next 1 year. So I've been doing this every single year, probably since about 2009. And having these annual reflections, annual review with myself, I think is absolutely, I don't think that I could move forward with clarity without going through this process every year. The last thing that I work on, and it's something that has been building up and piling up over the past year or more, and it is really to do with making all of these videos and making videos for the school and taking a ton of photos, and just there is this proliferation of digital media, digital assets. There's just so many digital files everywhere. And so one of the things that I need to do is to sit down and clear out all of my digital spaces. So that includes sort of looking at what's in the Dropbox and getting that all cleared up, what's in the Google Drive, what's in the iCloud, what's in the Evernote account. Just there's files everywhere. And trying to make sure that when I get a new file, like maybe it's a new WIF file for weaving, like a weaving exchange draft file, or maybe it's a weaving pattern PDF, or it's a knitting pattern PDF, where do those files go? Where do I store them? Where can I find them the next time I actually want to read them? So it's just become incredibly important for me to figure out where all of my digital files are. Where are the video files being stored? Where are the photo files being stored? Where are the photo files that were being stored where I can use them and Greta can use them and Leah can use them? And so there's a lot of digital management that needs to happen. Getting all of the digital systems organized is really helpful for sort of alleviating a lot of weight, mental weight as well, because then when you receive a knitting PDF, you're not thinking, where do I keep my knitting PDFs? Where do I keep my knitting patterns? Where did I put them in Dropbox? Did I put them in Dropbox or did I put them in Evernote? Or do we put that in obsidian now? So those are the three things that I do every year to reset. I'm looking at my physical space and cleaning up and sorting out my physical space, either the craft attic, my weaving space downstairs, my knitting space downstairs, spinning space, all of that kind of stuff. Just going through every area and getting all of that sorted out. The second thing is that mental space. So just brain dumping all of the things that you want to work on, all of the things that are on your mind that are consuming your thoughts, write it all down using a pen and paper. And that just really helps to get everything out. And then you can look at it and review and consider what is it you want to move forward with. And then number 3, getting all of your digital life organized as well. So that way when you need something, you know where to find it. You're not hunting and searching through all of your file folders and hard drives and phone and cloud storage to figure out where all of your stuff has gone. So those are the 3 things that I do to reset the year. I am very, very curious about what you do to reset your year. Do you set New Year's resolutions? Do you set new goals? Do you set new intentions? Do you have a word of the year? What is it that you do to get started with the new year? I am going to share more about my goals for this coming year and specifically what I want to make this year. I'm going to talk about that next week in the live stream version of our Taking Back Friday. And so I welcome you guys to come for that. It's 10 o'clock Pacific Standard Time and on Friday. And we just come and sit in a live stream and I'll talk about the things that I'm planning to do for the year. As well, in the next coming weeks, I'm going to go into much more detail about each one of these different areas. So we're going to do a whole craft room tour so that I can show you how I do sewing in here, weaving in here, spinning in here, machine knitting in here, how all of that stuff happens in this one little craft room, as well as all of the other little craft stations that I have positioned throughout the house. And as well, this year we're going to talk a little bit more about documentation systems, how I keep track of projects, how I keep track of projects in an analog way as well as in a digital way. And so I'm looking really forward to sharing all of that stuff with you as well. That is basically it for today. Thank you so much for being here today. I really look forward to seeing you in the live stream next week, Friday at 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time here on YouTube. If you would like to subscribe to this channel, we come out with new videos every week about the fiber arts, anything to do with crafting and color and spinning and weaving and knitting and dyeing, all of those things. I love talking about all of that. If you want to follow us on Instagram, you can find us at SweetGeorgia, at School of SweetGeorgia, and you can find all of my weaving stuff at Low Meets Loom. And so with that, I will see you guys in the next one. All right, bye for now.